Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from round 3 of the Altibox Norway Championship. Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces takes on Alexander Grischuk, and I'm not gonna mention if it's the classical or the Armageddon, not to spoil anything for you. I will let you decide that for yourself during the game. You will, check out the moves and see which of it could it be. And sorry about no video yesterday. I really had a fever and could barely speak, so I mean, sometimes I will do a video even if I'm not feeling all that great, but yesterday just wasn't one of those days. And since we haven't shown any photos from this event yet, here's a very nice photo by Leonard Otis. He's the official photographer of the event, and there you have it, all of them: Wesley So, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, Alexander Grischuk, Shahriar Mamedjarov, Ding Liren, Yu Yang-Yi, Levan Arnold, Magnus Carlsen, Vishwanathan Anand, and Fabiano Caruana. All of them here. Levan, you can see, always most colorful person in the tournament, always with his big smile. Carlsen always there with his very nice hair. Anand, in the front as usual. Fabi rocking his jeans and sneakers. I like it. You can see that Grischuk is much taller than everyone else. If you didn't know that, maybe also you'd appreciate that information. You can see Mamedjarov giving Carlsen the deadly stare. If some of you don't know, Mamedjarov was the last person to defeat Carlsen in classical time format last year in the World Chess Festival. But so far in 2019, Carlsen has not lost a single game. Well, we still don't know how this game will turn out. So but until now, and the rest of the happy crew. So there you have it. I do hope you enjoyed that. A very nice photo by Leonard Otis. I will put a link to his other work in the description below, so feel free to check it out. Really some amazing photos there. So without further ado, and it's very interesting, we haven't had a nice Grunfeld game in a while, so I hope you enjoy this as well. Knight to f6, we have c4 and g6. Sorry about that. Knight to c3 and d5, so the Grunfeld setup is on the board. C captures on d5, knight captures and e4. We go for the main line of the Gruenfeld. Knight captures, b captures, and bishop to g7. And now bishop to e3. We have c5, attacking white's strong center, and now rook to c1. There are a lot of possible moves here. You could develop the bishop, the knight, but rook to c1, you want to get this rook away from this nasty diagonal as soon as possible anyway. So, queen to a5 by Grischuk, putting pressure on this diagonal now. The threat is c captures on d4. We have queen to d2 now by Carlsen, and castles by Grischuk. Knight to f3, and here we have bishop to g4 by Grischuk. It's interesting, in the tournament we covered not so long ago, the Abidjan tournament, the Côte d'Ivoire rapid event, knight to d7 was played here in a game between Ding Liren and Wei Yi, and Wei Yi won a very nice game there against... in the Gruenfeld. But Grischuk goes for a different line with bishop to g4, and now d5, just grabbing more space in the center. This is the most often played move in this position. And it's interesting, there are a couple of moves here. For example, bishop captures on f3, just ruining white's pawn structure on the king side, is the most often played move here. And even though most games in the database ended in a draw, in this line black won more games than white. So it is, I don't know, maybe in such a top competition against Carlsen, you might want to go for a move like that. But Grischuk goes for b5, and it's a really nice line. It was only played once in 1987, year I was born, against Rob Witt and Johannes van Mil, and it ended in black winning a very nice game in the Netherlands Championship. But in that game, white went for the bishop captures on c5. It is the strongest move recommended by the engine, but Carlsen ignores the c5 pawn. He just continues development. Bishop to e2, and bishop to e2 is a new move. So here, I don't know how far Grischuk prepared this b5 idea. Maybe some of you have caught the interview after the game, so if you have, do share. So I'll give it a heart so everyone else can enjoy, but I have not, so I don't know. But as of this moment, like I said, we have a completely new game. Knight to d7, Grischuk continues development with ideas of capturing on f3, maybe getting this knight to e5, maybe even pushing c4, getting it to c5, all depending on what white plays. Carlsen simply castles with bishop captures. Now, of course, the bishop can capture. You don't have to ruin your pawn structure, so it's very safe to castle kingside. And now c4. Closing everything here on the queen side, making sure the c3 pawn remains a constant target. The bishop attacks it, the queen attacks it. This knight can now come to b6, to a4, and also the knight can attack it. So this is what Grischuk wants out of the position. Bishop back to e2 by Carlsen. Now you have to make room for this f4 pawn, as obviously you're not going to be playing on the queen side. Rook f to d8 by Grischuk, and now comes f4. We have knight to b6 with ideas of getting this knight to a4 and attacking the c3 pawn like we've mentioned. And now after the pawn has been pushed to f4, now bishop back to f3 with further control of the center. And now queen to a3, a very important move by Grischuk, as you'll see later on. I'm just going to have a nice sip of my water. And Carlsen now prepares an attack on the king side. We have h4, and Grischuk, of course, counters in the center. We have e6, and Carlsen ignores him. We have, well, and here's one of the reasons why queen to a3 was such a nice move. If you could play d6 here, and, well, supported with e5, that would be really awesome for white. But here, the rook and the queen are guarding the d6 square. So Grischuk had this in mind before playing e6. After e6, we have h5 by Carlsen, completely ignoring this counterattack in the center. And here, if you capture, white will just push e5, nothing to worry about there, nicely controlling the d4 square. You're going to push f5 here, you can even capture. A lot of ideas for white. So here, after h5, we have knight to a4, now Grischuk goes after the pawn, and now just h captures on g6. H captures on g6, and Carlsen continues the attack. With f5, and now there are a couple of possibilities here. For example, you can grab the c3 pawn, but you can't grab it with the knight. If you grab it with the knight, then you get captures on g6, and after you capture, bishop to g4. Going after the pawn here, and even after you defend it, it's just going to be e5. You're going to block the bishop's control of the knight here. So it should be a much better position for white. On the other hand, you can grab it with the bishop. But are you really going to give up your dragon in a position where your king is being under attack? White would give up the rook here very, gladly. Queen captures, queen would come to f2. Now there are a lot of ideas here, like bishop d4 attacks the queen, controls h8, followed by queen h4 to h8 mate. Just too many dark square weaknesses to even consider such a thing. So after f5, Grischuk decides on e captures on f5. We have e captures on f5. And now queen back to d6. The queen has to come help out with the defense. Now bishop to f4, kicking the queen away from the d6 square. Magnus wants to push this pawn, well, to d6 and further on. Queen to b6 check, king to h1, and now comes g captures on f5. There were some other ideas here, but I don't know. Some of you mentioned that you don't enjoy disgusting engine line. I call them disgusting not because they are disgusting, but it's because, we're human, so we're not supposed to play like that. But I will mention queen f6 here as a nice resource for black. It's very counterintuitive, I mean, as you're allowing bishop to g5. But even bishop to g5 is not best for, for white. White would just go f captures on g6, and after queen captures, push d6. And it would be just very hard to play this. You're not getting rid of this pawn. Your knight is so far out of the game. You have the bishop pair very strong. After black tries to get rook into the game, you can go d7 even, and after rook to b6, it would just be, well, a very, very tough position to play for black, but it was black's best resource because, well, you probably see queen f6, but then see bishop g5, and you're like, nah, we're not going into this. But okay, I just mentioned it. G captures on f5 was played by Grischuk, and now Carlsen just continues d6, and it would be much better if the queen was over on the king side instead of on b6, because here the king is somewhat loose on the king side. All of Carlsen's pieces are going for the king, and, well, Grischuk's pieces are not really camping where they should be camping. Rook a to b8. Grischuk prepares to bring the rook into the game, but now bishop to d5. And now Grischuk tries to bring the knight into the game, knight to c5, bishop to g3, now opening up an attack towards the f5 pawn. We have knight to e6, and now just rook captures on f5. And now there are a lot of dangers in the position. For example, if Grischuk continues something like a5 or let's say even b4, then rook captures on f7 will be deadly. After king captures, just rook f1 check. You can't go here. You have to, allow white to capture the knight. Bishop captures here, and black just falls apart. So after rook captures on f5, Grischuk now decides to give up the exchange. We have rook captures on d6, but now Carlsen just grabs the exchange. With bishop captures, queen captures, and now comes queen to e3. So threatening a lot of ideas here. We have queen to b6, trying to trade queens, but Carlsen is not interested. He's better on the board, so he prefers to keep the queens on the board. f7 is very weak. The bishop, the rook, the queen are all eyeing the f7 pawn. You cannot move the knight. We have rook to f8 defending, and now just rook to f1, bringing more pieces to attack the f7 pawn. Here Grischuk defends. We have knight to d8, but now comes rook to h5, and now it's very hard to defend. Queen here to here will be checkmate. Grischuk played queen to c7, and now feel free to pause the video here and try to find the best idea for white to play in this position. I'll give you a couple of seconds. It's not all that trivial, so you know, think twice before you agree on the move. I really enjoy this position because it's a kind of position that will often happen in your own games. But for those of you who found queen to f5, congratulations, this does win, but it's not the best. Because queen f5, yes, you do threaten checkmate, but if the rook moves, then the king does have an escape route here, and so on. So it is possible, and you will still win the game, but it's not the best move. Here, Carlsen played queen to e4 instead. It's much better. Again, threatens checkmate. You cannot push f5 as the pawn is pinned, and of course rook e8 just is met with queen captures on e8. So there is no counterplay here, and it was in this position on move 34 that Alexander Grischuk resigned the game. So once again, congratulations for those of you who found queen to e4. I mean, it's queen to f5 is nice. You will win the game, but it's always better to win the game, sooner than later. So yeah. That's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Afson Zamani, Genero Salerno, Peter Friedel, Prezmislav Smezelkovsky, and Robert Fisher for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Hope I will be feeling better, and then we can show some more games from this very nice tournament, and then check out the standings, as it is already round 3. So yeah, thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.